What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Once again, we're playing some Madden 19 franchise mode today, as we'll go through an entire off-season today. Now, if you've played the recent Maddens, you'll be very familiar with most of the things I'm showing in this video. There weren't a lot of things updated to the off-season this year. The main thing that was changed was basically the draft presentation. On the other hand, if you are not very familiar with franchise mode, this video will give you an idea of what to expect when you're going through your own off-seasons. Once you sim past Super Bowl week, you then reach the off-season, and from there you can check the transaction screen that tells you every player that has retired after the year. It's usually players who have played for a very long time. Usually it's double-digit years, although in this off-season I did see one player retire after only 9 years, defensive tackle Tom Johnson. The first stage for you, though, in the offseason is to re-sign your pending free agents. You're the only person who can negotiate with these players at this point, but they can say no and test free agency. You can also take care of these re-signings during the season, but anything that's left over, you will be doing here in the offseason. You only get one chance to negotiate at this point. That's why it's good to negotiate during the season, because if a player says, no, I don't like that deal, you can offer them a new one. But here in the offseason, you get one chance. So to go through it, I have my Minnesota Vikings here, and I have Stefon Diggs' menu pulled up. You can see his ratings, his overview. You can check the stats from here. It's basically the edit roster screen or the view roster screen. So everything you need to know about that player is here at that menu. You typically want to be a little bit more than the fair offer, because sometimes offers right at the fair offer they will decline. In this case, I do go a bit over the fair offer, and Stefon Diggs does re-sign. Typically, the players who want a lot of money want many years on their contracts. Players who are younger and want smaller deals typically want shorter contracts. For Anthony Barr, I try making an offer right at the fair offer. Actually, it's a little bit more. And he still chooses to test free agency. You get one franchise tag every year that basically is a 1-year guaranteed contract that is the average of the top 5 contracts on a per year basis at that position. For Sheldon Richardson, I try to re-sign him. He also declines. Now, there is a trait that goes hand in hand with contract negotiations, and that is predictability, but you have to go into edit player to actually see it. I'm not sure why they hide some of the important traits from the actual screen that shows traits. I'm still trying to figure that out this year, because you used to upgrade traits with experience. Now I'm not sure if traits can really be changed. What you're seeing at this menu is a bug. I tried to withdraw offer from any player here I didn't want to sign because I just didn't want to do a deal, but it still brought up this menu. I could hit X to sign player, but it wouldn't do anything, so it wouldn't actually sign a player I withdrew any offer from. It's just a little menu bug. Typically, though, when you want to re-sign players, try to offer them a bit more than the fair offer is. I do like how at the top you can see the timeline of events here in the offseason. I used to get kind of confused about how many stages there were, but it's the same setup as we've seen in recent years. After you go past the re-sign stage, that opens up unrestricted free agency, so anybody who wasn't signed is now available. You see the puzzle piece icon next to the player names, indicating that they fit your scheme and will get extra experience for training to help them continue progressing as players. Usually by this stage, if there are multiple bids on a player, like is the case here with Trent Brown, you're going to have to go way above the fair offer. You can see how many teams have bid and how many points their bid is worth, but you're not sure exactly what the signing bonus is or the structure. Here's the structure, though, when you offer a player a contract. This happened to be a 91-point bid with points going to each of these different categories. That's not going to be enough. It wasn't even close to being the top bid. When players go to unrestricted free agency, they tend to get much larger contracts because there's actually multiple teams competing to get them. However, there are also players who want contracts more expensive in the opening stage of re-signing, but you can get them cheaper later on, and typically those players fall in the under 80 overall category. Next up, you have Stage 2, which basically continues free agency. The best players from the class tend to re-sign right after that initial stage. We got deals accepted by Ryan Quigley and Trent Brown. The important thing about this stage is also that the combine results become available and you can continue to scout with more information now. The combine grades are really important because they give you an idea of what to expect from players' physical traits: speed, acceleration, agility, and strength. Those are the big ones. Jumping also, which is not as vital. The better their score, the higher you can expect that rating to be. You can also continue to edit the draft class in this stage. Even though it's the off season, you can even import another file if you want. I have not tried that yet to see what would happen to the existing scouting that you've done. I also read somewhere that when you edit a class, it does mess with draft stories. So I think once you start editing players, that they stop putting out the draft stories that give you an idea of who has like good development or who's struggling. After the draft class is edited, you can upload that online for other people to download, or you can export it locally, because obviously sharing draft classes this year is a big improvement to franchise mode. Now, with some of the new ratings, it does affect a little bit with scouting. Now, you're still going to see the top 3 ratings for each player, their combine grade, and their talent level when they're fully scouted. But there are a lot of new ratings, especially for offensive linemen, with pass block power and finesse, the same ratings for run blocking, and then the lead block rating. So the top 3 outlook definitely changes quite a bit compared to Madden 18, where you just had to worry about pass blocking, run blocking, and take a look at their bench press reps to see if they had good strength or not. Because we can only see their top 3 ratings, it does leave a lot unknown about the quality of the offensive linemen and how complete they are as prospects. So keep that in mind. These draft picks also have the puzzle pieces next to them if they fit your scheme. And that's obviously a big deal this year in franchise because it really accelerates how fast you can develop players for the future. By this stage, I tend to start scouting players that I overlooked before but have very good combine grades. You'll find some interesting talents here like Ace Gordy. You see that break sack is one of the new ratings in this game. Gordy, a really interesting mobile quarterback. I'm still seeing a lot of the similar types of players in these classes, like a lot of these 220 plus pound power backs. They kind of have the same skill set and they've been in the game for a while. Remember, you can go back to the puzzle piece icon there and take a look at what actually your scheme is looking for. I think this needs to be updated for the future because nobody wants the same type of player at each position. Maybe at offensive line, you want players who all fit something specific, but say running back, nobody wants all power running backs or all speedy running backs. In the offseason, you can also get to trading. I'll try trading Trey Waynes here. And one thing that you'll have to keep in mind is that every team will value a player you put available differently. The first thing to do is go through and find teams that give your player that green triangle there in the corner because they're the ones who are really interested. And it can be a little unpredictable at times to see what offers teams will accept. The Jets would not send the number 10 pick for Trey Waynes, but the New England Patriots, they're okay sending over pick number 30, a first-round pick for Trey Waynes. I'm still trying to figure out more with this trade system this year. I don't think this is a great trade for New England, but it's also not a terrible trade. Waynes is 27 years old, 81 overall, he fits their scheme perfectly, and he has quick development. I think on their part it's a bit of an overpay, but I don't think it's egregious. If we had done the deal for a second-round pick, I'd call it a steal for New England. After this stage, we have more free agency essentially. You'll have a few stages where you can continue negotiating with free agents, those who are left anyway. The longer you go, the worse the free agents are essentially. And you can continue to scout every week and find out the interesting talents that round out your draft board. Keep an eye out though for the Combine Warriors. DeAndre Deku had an amazing combine, but the top 3 skills show that he's probably not an NFL caliber cornerback. At any time, even during the season, you can edit your draft board so you can rank players in whatever order you like. I like to go by position personally because the overall board gets a little overwhelming when there are like 50 or 60 players on there. As long as I can go to a specific position and be like, I like this player the most, and then on my overall board, if I know who like my top 5 prospects are, I'm usually pretty content there. But you can edit that in any way that you want. And so far this year, in comparison to last year, the offensive linemen seem a lot more promising, but I also haven't gone through many off seasons at this point. So after that stage, we get the NFL draft step, where you can check on the free agent recap. You can't negotiate with any of these players right now, but these players will be there once you get to preseason week 1. You can check on all the players that you signed, check out the offers that you gave them, and then league signings. What's under fair offer is actually the deal those players got. And you'll see some pretty large contracts given out here in free agency. That's why I'm not always taking part in this step very much. Tyrod Taylor's going back to the Bills. They missed him so much after 1 year away. Tyrod for $60 million. You can check the transaction log and tell that that is exactly the deal that they got. It's disappointing, though, to see them sign Tyrod Taylor when they have a second-year quarterback now on their roster who was a first-round draft pick, who has quick development. There needs to be some improved logic that tells a team, we're not drafting a quarterback because this situation exists. Or we're not going to sign a quarterback because we want to develop this quarterback. After that, we have the NFL Draft, and this is essentially the largest difference I've seen to the offseason. We now have this outdoor venue, and it's a different style of presentation, but it's really just aesthetic. There's one change, though, that is somewhat significant, depends on how you view it, but when a player is drafted, their name is shown, and next to it, you see their overall. Before they had it, so you couldn't see a player's overall from another team until the draft recap. So when you're watching other teams draft, you can go ahead and see, oh, they got a good player at this position. How can we use that information now to our benefit, essentially? And you no longer get a list of players that were taken. You just have to look at the board every selection. And if you skip a bunch of picks, you're not going to know those players' ratings. So let's get to our selection here. I had 2 first-round picks thanks to that Trey Waynes trade. And you obviously get trade offers. Pretty much every round there's somebody willing to trade up to that spot, and you'll have to watch out here for the year the pick is from, because they tend to be heavy on the future capital and they oftentimes undervalue their future draft picks. But I wanted to make a selection here, an early second round prospect at left tackle. It was a big need here for Minnesota. Improve the offensive line. We select Corbin Hardings. And now when you select a player, you'll immediately see them in uniform, which is really cool. But otherwise, this stuff here is similar to last year, seeing the draft analysis, if it was a reach or a good value, and then their ratings. I wouldn't mind in the future if they hid the development trait, because it does seem a little weird to know everything from the beginning, but it's the way it's been now for quite some time. Let's go on to the pick that we got for Trey Waynes, and in this case, we're going to go back to the offensive line. Left tackle, Jawan Sanford. We reached for some offensive linemen that are already better than the players that we had, so you can tell it's not a very good situation here along the O-line. Now, if you skip some picks and you want to see who was taken, you can always go to this transaction menu, and it shows every player that was taken with each pick, but not their ratings. We're going again to the offensive line here for the Vikings, and I select Bryant Morrow, a 4th round prospect who was more intriguing than about any 4th round offensive lineman I've seen in Madden draft classes for a couple of years. Fits the archetype, 76 overall, nice selection. Here's Ace Gordy. I just had to see what his ratings were, even if this was a test franchise. Really interesting talent here too, 6'3", 216, really good speed. Doesn't have the strongest arm, it's kind of average or below average. Accuracy might give you somewhere to start with an 80 break sack rating. I think developing a player like him for the long term would be really fun. One more selection here. I had to get a 3 technique because Sheldon Richardson wouldn't re-sign with me. Ryland Wagner is the selection, 73 overall, quick development. Then we go receiver next, Franklin Rodriguez. His best trait was short route running, and now route running is divided between short, medium, and deep. So different receivers succeed on different types of routes. That's a great improvement for this year. I like the addition of the new ratings. It adds an important layer of depth. And how about we round out my first draft here in Madden 19 the right way, the MrHurriicane way? We go and select a running back, Javaris Murray. And yeah, I would like to develop Murray a little bit if I had a franchise with him in there. We have a 67 overall halfback who had the best combine score available, 88 speed, 88 acceleration, got some juke in there and some elusiveness. Gotta have at least 1 or 2 running backs from late rounds on your roster. You never know what they can turn into. After that, the offseason is essentially over. You can go to this draft recap. This is the final stage of the offseason. Also, the news has these generic messages about different picks that were taken. They're not all that useful, though, talking about different traits for players, which would be pretty cool if they pointed out their strengths or weaknesses. But the draft recap, you can go through and see all the players that you selected, and more importantly, the players that other teams selected. You can take a look at all the ratings and then see what your rival teams have done as well, and get a look at their players and their uniforms. That is pretty much it for this video. The offseason is very, very similar to what it's been now for a couple of years. There aren't any major differences that we can see. There still needs to be some improved logic in terms of what positions teams are targeting and where they're spending money and if they're putting themselves in bad situations. One thing I'm definitely going to do as an upcoming video on Madden 19 is I'm going to follow a team for maybe 1 or 2 years, and I'm going to analyze the decisions they make to their team. I'm not going to make any for them. I want to see what they do. Who do they sign? Who do they re-sign? How do they spend their cap? Because I want to see where the biggest problems are with the AI and team management. I think the AI has a long way to go in this game in a variety of areas, and I want to start making some videos talking about it. But leave your feedback down below in the comment section on what you thought about today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Much more Madden 19 coming your way shortly, and if you're not familiar with my channel, do subscribe, as I'll be announcing my franchise team for this year with my Madden 19 franchise series. That's going to do it for today. Please leave a like on your way out. Those are very helpful, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.